If your company is the company that says, we're going to lead in AI, you're going to be really efficient, maybe really profitable, and nothing controversial is going to be happening there. It's just going to be average work, slightly faster, and completely non-controversial with no breakthrough insights.
This podcast contains the arguably witty banter of two friends, Skippy and Doogles, that like to debate about investing. The content is intended to be entertaining and for informational purposes only, not investment advice. You should do your own research and consult a financial professional before using any of the information in this podcast, and especially before investing.
Skippy and Doogles back in your earlobe sockets, people. Thank you for listening. We enjoy you coming to the show every week. Hit us up with that listener mail, skippydoogles@gmail.com. Love getting it. And skippydoogles.com is where you can go to find out everything. If you want to become a premium subscriber, which means you get the show early, you get some of our hot hips. It's like the combination of hot tips and just hips. But if you want that, skippydoogles.supercast.com.
I like the energy you brought to the intro today.
Mm-hmm.
But man, earlobe sockets, hot hips, it's tough.
Do you know what does not lie?
Tips.
Hot hips. My girl Shakira said that. Okay. We got two items for you today. We're going to talk about 1,000-year-old companies. How do they get there? What do they do? Discuss resilience and how we think about it incorrectly. And then Paul Graham put the transcript from this 1986 talk on his website by Richard Hamming, who is a mathematician, science type person. We're going to walk through some of the core elements of that. But first, 1,000-year companies. So this is the lyric I dropped at you, and you said, I don't know what that means, so we should probably have a conversation about it. There are so many of life's problems that stem from the fact that humans have to take action.
And this is where I need more details.
So where this came up was you were talking about there's some stocks that you might want to buy if they crash, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I responded with that is because the reason that they crash is not because people don't believe that in the long run they're going to end up making money. It's because they need their money to do something today or tomorrow. And so therefore they end up selling these stocks. And I think that there are so many ways in which, because humans need to do something now, this gets back to when we were discussing the benefits or not benefits of investing hundreds of billions of dollars in AI infrastructure right now. And part of what I said was they're doing a lot of these investments because they can't not do them. Not even necessarily because of ROI. Humans have to do a thing. And I think that causes many an issue. So this is a piece on bigthink.com.
The only thing I want to mention, this is by Eric Markowitz, and I got really mad at this article because it's like a teaser piece for a book, and it worked exactly. I'm going to have to buy the book. And that made me so frustrated with Eric. So, but props. Nice work, dude.
When I say hook line, you say
sinker.
There you go.
When I was in Japan a couple of years back, somehow I went way down this rabbit hole. Not enough material to write a book, but this is fascinating. I have takeaways that are slightly different than the article, but I want to talk about the article first, and I'll let you dive into that. It is so cool to have a company that's been around for 500 years or 1,000 years or 1,500 years. It's the coolest thing to me. So let's talk about how that happens.
So here is the first thing that I took away from this. They talk about resilience a lot in here. And resilience, oftentimes, we talk about it from the individual perspective. You fall down, you can get back up. Individual toughness. But this discusses resilience as the strength of the system that is around you as a company versus you. One of the anecdotes they drop in here is about Howard the dry cleaner. I didn't realize a duck could become a dry cleaner, but anyway.
Oh, I love that movie.
It's so good.
My afternoon is planned now that you dropped that one.
It's so good. I actually tried to watch it a couple years ago, and I was like, this is not good.
I remember
it being so good. Anyway, Howard the dry cleaner. So Howard is this grumpy, curmudgeonous dry cleaner, but is so meticulous. He cares about his customers. He cares about his craft. And what happens is during the pandemic, people stop bringing in things that they would naturally bring in to get cleaned. So if you think about your wedding dresses, your business clothes, etc., they didn't need those dry cleaned with the urgencies anymore. So Howard's business would tank. Like that is the natural course of action because dry cleaners did that. However, with Howard, what happened is he had his regular customers and they started bringing in their curtains. They started bringing in their rugs. They started bringing in winter coats they dug out of the back of the closet just because they wanted Howard to have business. Mm-hmm. And that kept him alive. And now his business is thriving. What this says is that, and I'll quote here, we treat resilience as a character trait. But in the real world, over long horizons, resilience behaves much more like the defining property of an ecosystem. Do you build, this is kind of a separate point in here, but I'll still say it. Do you build the trust system around you such that when ish goes wrong, your system gives you resilience versus you having to rely on it yourself?
Well, what's like hinted at in here a bunch, but not necessarily mentioned in the example of Howard is what also probably like you can assume happens is Howard's operating expenses are very low and manageable. It might just be Howard at the shop. Howard's debt levels are probably non-existent, and he has a savings burden. Like, there's other things. I love the desire that Howard did right by his customers for 20 years, so his customers took care of him. And literally, what this piece articulates really well is if you're a dry cleaner, COVID is the worst possible storm you could ever imagine, right? Not only are people not allowed to go out of their house, then like fashion evolves to a place where everyone wears sweatpants all the time. Like that's just where we ended up. And half the people stopped going to the office, which their office was probably near the dry cleaner, and they probably wore nicer clothes to go to the office. It's the worst possible storm you can imagine for that type of business.
But he built trust over the years, literal lifeline. I like that you brought that to, this is not just relational, because with Howard, it's a relational ecosystem. It's not just that. It's also you were talking about debt, cash, your finances. What is the stability and the resiliency that you build in your own system as well? So it's not a character trait. When things go wrong, because they always do. Something's going to go wrong. When they go wrong, are you not now fully on your back heels? Like, is there something there to help you, to support you? Next thing, efficiency can weaken resilience when it removes slack, redundancy, and human connection. This reminds me of AI and some of the AI conversations that we've had, because there's so much that's about efficiency. And we talked about, was it like maybe 2 weeks ago? We were talking about how time can actually be in your favor sometimes. So just being able to get something done quickly, sometimes it's good. Like I'm not saying always be inefficient, but efficiency is something that when you're just looking to get something done, you get rid of the buffer that can exist. You get rid of some of the supportive, I don't want to use the word infrastructure again, so I'll try and say something different. Supportive tissue. Look at that. You see me? Synonyms. Some of the supportive tissue that can exist there. So like Slack is super important. I've been doing research around for the individuals as well as to how they create support systems for themselves, and the importance of Slack in the system that exists there, like in your everyday life.
Yes.
Is also really, really critical. Because when you don't have Slack and you're all bogged down by all the obligations and opportunities, whatever it is that exists in life, then when something, again, going wrong, which it will, it's like things snap in an instant. Slack, very, very important. This quote I also love from this piece. If you optimize a system for a perfectly sunny day, that system will inevitably shatter the moment it starts to rain.
Too poetic.
I feel like you wrote that. Like you say some version of that all the time.
Yeah, I want to keep going on this. Like, So do you want to talk about the 5,000-year-old tree, or do you want to talk about Beretta?
Ooh, I'm going to talk about both of them. So you choose where we go next.
Have you ever heard of a bristlecone pine before? Because I don't know that I had.
Not until I read this piece.
Right. Here's the long and short of it. Grows super slow. Ends up with incredibly dense hardwood. So dense that bugs can't even get inside the thing to infest it and kill it. But also so dense and so purposed in its approach to growth that if there's a summer or two that's incredibly dry, it's not going to die because of that.
Yep.
It's a great analogy of, like, I don't know why this tree exists or why it grows so slowly. But where I'm going to take us when we wrap with the article is this thought process of what your time frame is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because if you think this decision that my company is making, my business is making, what's it going to look like in 3 years? That's one thing. If you think what's it going to look like in 6 months, that's another thing. If you think what's it going to look like in 20 years, that's a whole other thing. These companies that are around for 1,000+ years think, what is this going to be like in 200 years? Yeah. And that mindset does not exist in American business.
Yeah. No. The closest thing that I can see to it happening right now, but I don't know all the details, so we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah.
But from outside in is Apple and their AI spending. That's the closest thing I can see to what's happening right now, potentially. Again, I don't know all the detail, actually, so I can't. But the reason I say that is because the moments what may, if things take a turn in the industry, this is the situation where you can use downturns to be slingshots for your business. When you have not set yourself up in a position where things have to go perfectly well in order for things to be great. Like where OpenAI, which we talked about a whole bunch in here, obviously, but where OpenAI is things have to be beyond perfect in order for anything that they are doing right now to be justified. Nearly anything.
Oh, man, Sarah Fryer's having a rough go, huh?
Yeah, this woman has been dropping truth bombs over the last few months, and every time she drops a truth bomb, it comes out, and it's just awful.
The Wall Street Journal literally had a piece that said something along the lines of, as the headline, for OpenAI to IPO, Sarah Fryer has to convince the company to grow up or act professionally. Yeah. I mean, it's so bad.
And she's good. That's the problem. She's very good. Alas.
Yeah.
So they also in this section, I think it's the same section, they were talking about the Congo Gumi temples.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same section. And to your point, they're discussing how they're like, okay, in 60 years, we're going to have to replace these beams. So how do we think about designing the beams today? And the most beautiful part about that is the person that's putting that in is not going to be the person that's maintaining them in 60 years, but they're still thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, this goes similar to, it's my same point. So this is actually section 3, the discipline of the unfinished. But that thought process alone is our maintenance plan includes doing this in 60 years. In so much of America, the maintenance plan includes knocking the building down in 40 years, right? So the entire idea of you change all your design decisions if you are going to do this maintenance every 60 years. You're thinking about a building that will last hundreds of years. It's
That's right.
Such a lovely approach.
And I love this quote here too. Resilient organizations use their good times to pressure test their assumptions. Just mic drop on it. No need to say anything else. I think that is so true. And it is missed so often. You can say organizations there. You can say just in your everyday life. When things are going well, what do you do? And what the pressure is, going back to the actions, the pressure that exists inside of the ecosystem right now is when things are going well, you double, triple, quadruple down. You go into debt. You figure out how you can grow exponentially. And I'm not saying that you don't look at growth opportunities. Of course, you got to ride waves. However, also pressure test. Figure out when stress comes in, what happens. Because these are the places where if the wave is going up and you get hit a little bit, the wave can still catch you and you'll still ride a bit. But if you start to pressure test when things are going down, if you find the cracks when that's happening, you're riding the wrong wave. Pay a hater.
I'm going to say that more strongly. You can't grow at 50% a year and be around as a company for 500 years. If you grow too quickly, you will ride the wave down, eventually collapse. It has to be slow and steady.
Not all times are equal there. I agree with that point. But in your first 3 years of business or something, it might be different. You have to get to a certain level of
fair. Yeah. There's none of these that are fully black and white. But let me just give you a few. This is not from the article, but I want to take us to fantasy land. So in Japan alone, some of the most famous older companies, I'm not going to pronounce any of the names, so I'm going to give you what they do and when they were founded. World's oldest construction company and the longest continuously operating company in the world was founded in 578. All right. World's oldest hotel, owned by the same generation, same family for 52 generations, founded in 705. The oldest sake brewery in Japan, founded in 1141, Douglas.
That's not even impressive. When I'm hearing 578, like 1141, why'd they wait so long?
Yeah, not even 1,000 years old. How dare they?
How'd you even make the article? I guess they didn't. They weren't in there.
It goes on. I mean, there's a food company founded in the 1520s that's operated in the same location for over 400 years. Mm-hmm. Where I want to take us to fantasy land is, if this is even possible in America today, if you or I started a business with the goal that we wanted the business to operate for 1,000 years, I can't even think of the framework that might enable that. But the other thing happening here is it's an incredible sacrifice by certainly the original founding members, but by all the previous generations that worked there. In order for a company to ride through things like World War II, plagues, earthquakes, nuclear bombs, you name it, right? You have to defer gratification for the company's sake, which means you take less money. You grow less quickly. And that's what I think is unique to certain aspects of Japanese culture. And I just don't know, like, this would be, people talking about legacies all the time. Typically, I'm unimpressed. I think a legacy of having a company run for 1,000 years that was something that you founded in your DNA is an incredible legacy. But I'm just not sure it's even possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think what people would say in this country is they would say, it's a legacy that I'm glad did happen. Like, that would be an awesome legacy to have happened. But I'm not fitting to start my company. Do you know what I mean? Like, that sounds great. If that has already occurred, that's wonderful. And I'm going to, shout it from the rooftops. But we're the country of the Vanderbilts, who like destroyed generation after generation, just destroyed the legacy.
Well, my point is, I don't see anyone. No, that's not true. It's very rare when someone has an opportunity to make a quick buck, when someone has an opportunity to bring on more debt, to add rocket fuel to their growth engine, when someone has an opportunity to raise more money for their startup. Yeah. In America, you almost always take it because it seems like most people want the easiest path to the most amount of money, even if that creates a fragile company that probably won't be around 20 years later.
So I agreed. Two things just came to mind. One is the U.S. is 250 years old this year, will be, as signified by the wrestling match that's going to occur in Washington, D.C. So if you're only 250 years old, 1,000 years is kind of tough. But I wish I didn't do this. But I just Googled oldest company in the U.S. And what the Google AI just said to me is the oldest continuously operating business in America is Shirley Plantation in Virginia. So maybe that wasn't the right route to go down. Oldest commercial business, maybe this. The White Horse Tavern in Rhode Island, 1673. So that we're getting something there, right? We're getting a little bit closer, almost 400 years with that one. But we're a young country. So it is tough, I think, even for people to be able to, the incentives aren't there, I think was what you're getting to, but also for people to be able to visualize, like, even our country being around in 1,000 years. We're not treating the U.S. as if it's an entity that will be around in 1,000 years, let alone a business that started in the U.S.
I hear you. I was going to take it a slightly different direction, but
as you probably should.
I think to put a bow on it from my perspective, if this is something that's desirable to you or your company, I think the number one thing you can do is change your frame of reference and start thinking about what strategy matters 20 or 50 or 100 years from now, rather than what matters 3 months from now. I think everyone in the boardroom with you will vomit and throw you out the window, but I'm all for it. I love it so much.
You've got to have, when you go to the boardroom, you've got to have two different strategies. If you want the company to last, let's just call it 100 years. If that's in your head, you want to do that, start building the infrastructure to do that. But you do that in a variety of different ways. You have to do that through the balance sheet, right? Cash perspective, do that through culture. There's like other things in operating the business that you do. But then you have to take to the board the strategy that says, yeah, we're also going to grow 30% this year, or whatever the number is that you need to grow. You have to have both, and at least in the short term.
Okay. No, actually, I said I was done, but I'm not. What you just said, I understand from your perspective. That's right. Here's what I would say. If you need the board's blessing for a strategy like this, the business is not going to be around in 100 years, right? Because what you just said is, and then you're going to tell them how to grow 30%. No, it needs to be founder-led, almost family-owned, conservatively run.
Yeah. My experience is more with younger companies, and so it's a bit different, I think.
No, your experience is great. It's helpful, but it's just like without throwing shade, I don't know that any of the big companies I've worked at are going to be around in 1,000 years, but the companies you're experiencing probably aren't either.
No, certainly not. But I do think, going back to if you're at a company like Apple, I think a company like that actually probably has a chance because you've at least gotten to a place where you've earned credibility. I'm not picking on Apple because of the AI thing. I'm just saying, once you get to a place where literally Apple could probably do nothing for a while and still be around, they will mess it up somehow. Like, absolutely, someone's going to come and they're going to bet the company and it's all going to go under, right? Or whatever. I'm not throwing shit at Apple. I'm just saying big companies. But
yeah, I didn't know this was going to turn into such a thing. This is like you and I yelling at each other in the pre-show meeting about NBA three-pointers. But Apple's an interesting one. So I'm just gonna drill you a little bit on this.
Yeah.
Apple almost died, right?
Yeah.
Steve Jobs has to call Bill Gates for a lifeline. If Steve Jobs isn't in that seat, and Steve Jobs loves that company, right? Apple doesn't exist today.
Absolutely.
I would argue, right?
Absolutely.
If the board is just trying to break it up for some parts or whatever. So as of today, 2026, I think Apple still has a very strong, almost founder-led nature where people love the company, and it's not going bust in the next 20 years. But in 2070, who knows what looks like, right?
That's absolutely
That's the point where even we talked about GE last episode, right? GE in 1995, it has a totally different culture than GE in 2026. It's just like, what I'm trying to say is when it's just run like a business with the board and shareholders and everything else, there's less and less desire to plan for 100 years from now. Yeah.
The incentives aren't there. They're not aligned to something like that. I agree with that. We're not gonna go to Beretta, I don't think, because I think we have to switch topics, but I'll give one last quote on this that goes back to the time element. On the pressure testing, they go looking for micro fractures while they still have the cash and the psychological bandwidth to fix them. I just take away that line, I think, for this section. When things are good, go find the micro fractures. Do it when psychologically you have the space for it, which is not when everything's on fire. Because when everything's on fire, someone's going to look at you and be like, why are you over there doing that? We don't have time for that. Do it when you can and while you still have the cash.
I got 5 more minutes. I mean, I think
you want to go to Beretta?
So
you want to go to
post World War II, they don't have anyone buying guns, which is a blessing. Thank you very much.
No one's bought a gun since World War II. Come on.
No, I'm talking immediate aftermath.
Yeah.
And they, ran the company in a conservative way where they could still pay their employees, even though their main revenue stream dried up. And they shift to trying to make cars. Like, that's a very admirable shift. It's not, none of the McKinsey consultants are claiming that's like the world's most strategic move, I don't think, because it obviously didn't work out. But it was enough to bring in a little revenue to keep their talent, like the identity of the company there. I think it's brilliant.
And going to the talent piece, what the article at least explains is that they had these people that had all the institutional knowledge of how to craft their craft. And so they could have let them go. But instead, they rode the cycle effectively. So they made these crap cars, which these people that knew how to make the craft of Beretta, they made these crap cars. And then when the industry turned back around, they still had that talent. That's a bit different than, I'll call it, any talent. But if there are people that understand your organization, the culture of the organization, the craft of the organization, how to operate, can you find other things for them to do? As opposed to what this is saying is that the natural inclination now is, the winds have changed, so therefore 40% of our company is gone.
It's good to talk to you about this. I think I'm depressed that in the modern American commercial industrial machine, I have a hard time picturing many companies lasting for, say, 500 plus years. I mean, maybe like a Ford, that the only reason they might not even make cars in 100 years, but like there's this political, idealistic idea that Ford is American, but like the politicians will never let it go out of business. Even
Yeah.
there's probably some things like that, but I don't think that's the same as some of these 1,000-year-old companies in Japan or other places in the world.
I think that's absolutely right. And I go back to saying, I think that part of it has to do with the fact that we don't even view our country that way. If you think about the way that China or Japan, I'll say that it's not just those companies, I'm just picking them because Japan's in here. The way they view their country is in long-term thinking. Like they think about what is the country going to be like in 100, 200, 300, 500 years. We think about what happened an hour ago, and therefore what do we need to do in the next hour, independent of the complications that might cause. It's very different.
I just want to go on the record here. I would like the country to be around in 1,000 years.
As would I. But I'm just saying that's not the way we act as a country. So how do you expect our companies to act that way? I hope that, and we're young. As a country, like we're also young, and so we're like little toddlers walking around. When we hit puberty, that could shift, and we can start thinking about things differently.
We're young and we're old as a country. Like, aren't we the longest continuously operating
democracy?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. So for the experiment that we're running around democracy, we are old, but as a nation state, we're young.
Fair. Let's jump into the fishbowl.
Oh, wow. I feel like you got fired up for a second, but you just didn't want to go there.
Yeah, I couldn't handle it. I want to talk about articles from 1980, speeches from 1986, Doogles.
All right, so reach into the fishbowl. Here we go. So Paul Graham put the transcript of this speech from 1986 here. I watched this, but I watched a version that he gave in 1995. But it basically kind of covers the same material.
Why can't Paul Graham have a decent website? This is like it's like this small on a computer. It looks like you're on a like a Nokia phone.
It looks better on mobile than it does.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And to be clear, I'm not saying it looks good on mobile, but it looks better on mobile than it does.
Does Paul Graham not know how to use the internet? Are we on to something here? Like, anyway.
Yeah, somehow Y Combinator happened. Okay. So here are some of the things that came from this. And to go back to what you said earlier, I'm gonna correct what this is really about, because he talks about research. That's like how you do research. But what he's really talking about, this guy, Richard Hamming, this mathematician, what he's really talking about is he's saying, how do you build a successful career? That's what this is really about. It's under the guise of research. The reason why it's under the guise of research is because he went to Los Altos? What is it called?
Los Alamos? No. Now you messed it.
I know. It's the place where all the brilliant scientists go to talk
now
and share ideas.
Now I can't say it because you can't say it.
He went to the
Alamo.
Alamo.
This is horrible.
But it's where all of the big scientists go. So he went there and he shows up and he sees all these people, brilliant minds, right? Richard Feynman et al. Are there. And the question that he asks is, how do they do what they do? Like, they are so brilliant. How do they do what they do? So he went, and that's what he tried to figure out. And through that, when he abstracted that out, he said, this is really a framework to say, how does one build a successful career? How do these great people do their great work? That's what we're going to discuss. The first thing is decide that you want to actually do great work. I'm gonna stick on this for one moment that's outside of the piece. And I know we've discussed this before. I see a number of people that talk about how they want things to be great, that talk about how they want to build these fantastic organizations, that they want it to be defining, they want to change the consciousness of the planet. I just don't think they really do. Like, I'm just going to be straightforward about it. I think they like the way the words sound, and they want to do great work, but I don't think they actually want to do great work. And I pull that away from their behavior. So that goes back to what he's saying here is actually decide that what you do, you want it to be significant. That's very important, because otherwise the rest of this just kind of falls by the wayside. There's no point in looking at it all.
The only thing I know there is you have to have decent mentors and role models. I mean, without being shown, it's easier. It's an easier analogy in sports, but like without being shown Jordan's work ethic, you might not even realize what seems like is good work ethic might be 10% of the way there.
Okay. All right. I think this is actually a proper use of I don't disagree, which usually I'm like, that just means
I hate that.
I know, I hate too.
That's the most.
But I'll say it a different way then, but that's what I mean here. What you're saying, I agree with the vocabs, but I don't agree with the spirit of it.
Okay.
Because oftentimes when someone hasn't seen what great is, that does change the level of play.
Okay.
But I still find that people aren't even, if you ask them, and because I've done this with people, I have come with the vague statement of make this great. And they have not seen greatness before, right? In this case, they have not seen greatness. And they don't exactly know what it means. Because they don't know what it means, they just do something. And I come to them and I go, well, do you even think this is great? And they go, no. So at first step is at least do what you think great is. And then I can show you what greatness actually is. But where I think people often land is they don't even think it's great. What they do is instead they say, oh, well, if I put all the effort in and it doesn't work, I look bad. And so they're not trying to be great. They're trying to do like the idea of what greatness ends up being. Or they try and do something that follows a benchmark that they've seen before. If you follow a benchmark, you by definition will not be great because the benchmark is average. So if you do something that's obviously not great, it's not because of a role model.
I read a breakdown of Phil Mickelson versus Tiger Woods today, and what Phil won 6 majors. Great golfer. He put in maybe, I don't know, 20 to 30% of the effort that Tiger put in. And the author I think he was a psychologist who was arguing that Phil was afraid that if he put in the same amount of work as Tiger and still lost to Tiger, that his life he'd feel like a failure.
See?
So he protecting, and I don't know if this is true or not. It was just the argument being made.
Yeah.
He was protecting like his spirit, his soul, his heart, because if he was second to Tiger and he won 6 majors and he, made hundreds of millions, that was great. Because he could always be like, yeah, look how good I am relative to the amount of work I put in.
Yeah.
That's a very fair and astute take. Some people are afraid to put in the work because if you put in all the work, and listen, I'm not claiming I'm this person. I'm not claiming I'm the person that puts in more work than anyone else. But if you put in more work than everyone else and your output isn't the best, that's a tough thing to take from mentally.
It hits your identity. Yeah, it makes you, it's like, who am I really? Like, I'm not saying, oh, you're a bad person or anything because of this. I'm just stating what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
We're just at this is like the least controversial take in this whole thing. But first, just decide that you want to do significant work, that you really want to do it. All right. The next one is, I like this one. Pursue independent thoughts and hard problems before you think you're ready, before they feel safe. So this is the place where it's go out there a little bit. And this is hard. This is another psychologically like really hard thing. But what he saw in the people he's working with, and if people have followed Richard Feynman, you see this with him through and through. And I'm not saying that he was the most psychologically healthy individual, but by the way, either. There is a put yourself out there component that exists there. You got to try something different. You got to try something that's contrarian, that people do not agree with at that moment.
I mean, the invested in parallel here is if you want to beat the market, you have to be 2 things. You have to be different than the market and right.
Yeah.
And so if your research is the same research as everyone else's research, it can't be great because it's your like baseline is B+, right? Yep. You want to get your doctorate and move on, but it's just going to be average because it's an average topic.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where where's my stick? Hold on. Can you see it?
It says, I'm not here to be average. I'm here to be awesome.
That's right. I have this in my office. So if you follow, and that says a lot about me, just on its own. And the fact that it's in stick form is kind of threatening. But if you follow benchmarks, general benchmarks, not as where I believe in benchmarks is just to get a sense of where you are. Like, I think it's really healthy actually to look at things to say like, well, where do I sit, et cetera. But if you follow benchmarks as your way to figure out strategy, investing strategy, business strategy, personal life strategy, you have decided not to do significant work. By this definition, when I say significant, I'm using it in his definition, what Richard Hammack's saying, not like that it has no meaning.
Yeah, unfortunately, everything today has an AI parallel, and I feel somewhat similarly. I'm not sure that I perfectly agree with your statement outside of AI, but in the AI space, if you're leveraging AI as your strategy engine, or your agents are half your employee or whatever, what you're saying is you're willing to accept like B+ work that is well established as a safe space, right? There's not going to be breakthrough innovation happening. If your company is the company that says, we're going to lead in AI, it says, that's awesome. You're going to be really efficient, maybe really profitable, and nothing controversial is going to be happening there. It's just going to be average work, slightly better than average work, maybe slightly faster, and completely non-controversial with no breakthrough insights.
And what the word that you just said is really important in controversial. It's controversial. If you do something, to use again Richard Hamming's language, significant, some element of it is controversial.
It has to be. Like,
exactly.
Again, I'll bring this back to investing. Like, for us to outperform the market, we have to have some take that's uniquely different, where when we give that stock pitch, someone goes, why would you ever, like, have you thought about this downside? It's like, yeah, the downside is the reason that the price is attractive.
Yeah.
Here's how it's mispriced. If you're just buying the same thing as everyone else, you get the same performance as everyone else.
And I want to reiterate what I said a couple minutes ago. This is not a good versus bad conversation by any means. Like, there's reasons you can just have like a good company, or you can just have a good life.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that at all. What I'm just going according to what he's talking about, significant, something that is breakthrough, something that changes an industry, whatever that is. If that's what you're looking at, it's very different. And in my background, where I'm biased around this, is I've spent time studying great companies as part of my professional career. I've looked at every stock return from every company that has ever existed on the U.S. stock exchange in history to look at what is greatness. If you recall, I think we talked about this maybe like 4 years ago, when we were saying I looked at all the companies that had ranked number one over the course of a decade as like the best performing company in that decade.
Yeah.
And there were 14 that ever held the number one position over the last 100 years. So what we have about 3,000 companies that are public right now on the U.S. markets. At its peak, I think it was like 5,000 or 6,000, like something like that, when it was at its peak. So that means over the course of forever, it's been tens of thousands of companies, whatever, that have gone public on U.S. markets. 14 have ever held the number one position. It's a low percentage. This goes back to your Michael Jordan point that you were yelling at me about earlier. Yeah, it goes back. It's a small percent. Okay, next point. We've made it through 2 so far. Okay, next point. I also enjoy this because I'm super nerd, dude. Keep a standing list of big questions in your field and revisit them regularly. What he's saying is there are these like big existential questions that don't practically like mean something necessarily today, but just keep a list of them and come back, because those are the ones that end up mattering.
Whatever. I mean, the undertone of every point that you're going to mention is, to great work, you need to be passionate in the field, right?
It's not, this goes beyond passion. Is that really what are you giving me a commencement speech?
If you're not, yeah, that's right, I am. If you're not passionate about the research you're doing in this context, you don't care about the big questions in your field. Who cares? You're trying to get a PhD.
All right, we're going to skip past that one quickly. I really like that one. My nerdiness really came out in that one. All right. Ambiguity is what he discussed next. Believe enough to proceed, but doubt enough to notice flaws. I think you got to get behind that one, especially when it comes to investing.
That's just a bunch of words.
Have enough conviction in what you're doing, that you move, that you're not stuck in analysis paralysis. However, don't just rely on all the confirmation biases to make you think that it's great and it's perfect. You have to have enough doubt so you notice the things that you may need to change, you may need to tweak, where things could go wrong. I thought you would get behind that 700%.
It's all right.
I think you're just over the piece.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Keep your door metaphorically open. Expose yourself to other people because that helps you find better problems. This I tie to AI as well, because I think that there are going to be more problems that people solve, especially in organizations, and they do it by themselves because AI can take care of it. And that stops them from having the conversation, from bringing in the person from marketing to brainstorm. I think that it starts to shut off little areas of potential serendipity that makes these sparks turn into brilliance sometimes in organizations.
I mean, my door was so metaphorically open this week that I got offered a free paragliding session.
So that proves the point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Think of all the things I could learn about investing while parasailing.
I think that this is true, not just, I just brought it up inside of companies, but I do also think it's true relative to AI. I've seen it myself in personal life. Because there are things where if you go back 2 years ago, maybe not even that long, but let's just say 2 years ago, there are things that if I wanted to explore a topic, understand more about it, I'd find someone that knew someone that had studied in that field. And then I'd hop on the phone or have a call. I'd create a connection. I'd probably learn something more in that conversation beyond what I was just there to do. But instead now I create a prompt. And in the next 10 minutes, I have basically everything I need to know, and then I move on. That is great for efficiency. And it's not good for me keeping my door metaphorically open.
Yep.
I'm not finding better problems because of that. I'm just answering the ones I already had.
No, I agree.
Yeah. You just want to be done with this 1986 conversation. Okay. The last one, he talks about avoiding alibis. This is the quote. There are so many alibis. Why weren't you first? Why didn't you do it right? Don't try an alibi. What he's saying is just be honest about what you did or did not do. Like, that's all he's saying. That there's so many reasons that you can find as to why something didn't work. But if you're going back to the beginning, if you're trying to do significant work, no alibis. Just like, did you do the thing? Did you not do the thing, and why? Otherwise, don't try and do significant work.
Be true to yourself.
Look at that. Buddha.
Be honest with yourself.
That's right.
I don't know if I want to go there.
Go there.
Is there a missing point to this piece that is some sort of articulation with how rare it is to truly do, like, I'm going to call it game-changing research, game-changing professional work? And if you want to do that, you probably have to understand the sacrifices that you might be making elsewhere.
Yeah. I think you said two different things. I heard two different things in what you just said that are both important. The first, and this gets to the conversation we just had around great companies and how many there really are, depending how you define great, right? But according to being number one in stock returns, there are just so few people, organizations, whatever, that do the big thing. There's so few of them. So it's rare. And if you tie your ultimate expectation to that in all circumstances, it's a high bar. Let's just say that. That's one point that I think is important. The second point that I heard from you is the trade-off point, is the point around what you, and if you follow, I only picked out a few of the things he said. This speech is it's a 45-minute speech that I watched. So it's a long piece. He says a lot of things, but the trade-off point is there's a lot of stuff you end up really having to do, and opportunity cost with time is real. And so going back to the first point, decide that you really want to do significant work. If you do, according to his definition of significant work, like, do you want to go to your kid's soccer game? Do you want to go visit your grandma in the hospital? Like, do you want to have great relationships? Like, it's not a full either or, but there's trade-offs you're going to have to make.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say you can't visit your grandma, but
in the hospital,
there's always trade-offs.
I was very specific.
Oh my! This episode was interesting. Let's just say that.
The big thoughts. These things made me do big thoughts.
Yeah, big thoughts can be tough. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We're just debating, folks. Another investment committee. If you have potential ideas there, again, we're very picky. We're probably not going to do your topic, but send it our way anyway.
God, you are probably the best salesperson of all time.
SkippyDoogles@gmail.com. If you have an investment idea that you're digging into and you would like our thoughts on it, we may do that in the near future.
Appreciate you listening to our big thoughts.
We'll see you next week.